I might have time to do that. We'll see.
I might need you to do another thing.
That's fair. Love y'all. Kenny the Adventurer. Do. How's it going? Getting ready to talk about some Stormlight. Can't believe in a week we will all have access to Wind and Truth. Blowing my mind right now. Absolutely insane. That's fair. Landon, welcome. Avi, guten Tagen. The last Stormlight Sunday before Wind and Truth graces us with its presence. Absolutely mind-boggling. Ha! Yeah. Oh man. Where is Shindle? Hello.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
Oh, it's a good day. It's a good day. I was chuckling as you joined in because every time I click on your name to add you, your little profile thing pops up, and I've never read the mostly as funnily as I did this time because it's mostly Cosmere art, and that's what the mostly is definitely supposed to refer to, but you could put the mostly about the other things in the line as well.
Wait, what? So what it would be?
Oh, it'd be mostly proud or
Mostly. It works.
Oh goodness, it's the pun brain. It doesn't ever stop, unfortunately.
Yeah.
How are you?
Gotcha. I am good, but slowly the anxiety has gone to very high levels at this point. We'll see. Somebody might have to like push me onto the plane, but we're gonna. I'll be there, but they're gonna have to push me.
When do you get in?
Wednesday, I think around 1 p.m.
Okay.
So, yeah, we'll have to see. I'm sure I'll be fine. I just haven't been sleeping and haven't been. It's just all the things.
Oh no!
All my anxiety people out there know what's happening. Know what I'm talking about.
Oh, that's so hard. I don't know. I had the realization mid Thanksgiving trip with my family. If there isn't any time between Thanksgiving and Dragonsteel, in my mind, they were two discrete events. Like you have Thanksgiving, and then you have a gap, and then Dragonsteel happens, and then sadly, my brain does not understand time at all because it wasn't until like almost the end of the trip that I was like, wait a minute, we get back and we leave in like 2 days.
Yeah, what? It's very fast. And I didn't go away for Thanksgiving, so like I'm here, so it's not like I had the extra traveling. But still, for the same thing happened to me where I was like, no, we have like 2 weeks after, and then I see someone behind you.
Yeah, my daughter's come to say hello.
Hi. She's so cute.
She says hi. She'll be dressed up as Syl for the convention.
Aw, she'll make a very good Syl. But anyway, so yeah, it's going to be very fast, but it'll hopefully be fine.
Yeah. You will be coming towards a large gathering of friends and encouragers and all the fun things. So
I know. I think once I get there, I'll be fine. It's also like all this. It's like sort of everything that I know I have to get done before Tuesday, and just all of that stuff. And I'm also just it's just the all-encompassing nerve. So I'm sure once I'm on the plane, once I get there, once I'm settled and I know how everything's gonna work and I get to the house okay, I'm sure I'll be fine. But right now is not fun. So
yeah.
Anyway.
No, I feel that deeply. I mean, my wife and I, she has the huge brunt of like, oh, let me finish. It's just the 2 cosplay. I think she managed the Inkspren and Syl are both done. but she's putting some finishing touches on Sisebron and Siri, both of which have LEDs slash fiber optic fiber, fabric, which is the first time she's ever worked with that. So she's hand embroidering the flower, the Tears of Edgley. So it's like with a transparent fabric, so the light will like illuminate up through the flower, and it's just it's gonna be so much fun.
It's gonna be amazing. It's gonna be, yeah, I'm excited to see it.
Yeah. Oh, but it is like, we have Monday, because we have to drive into Nashville at 3 hours from us for our Wednesday morning flight. So really, we leave tomorrow or Tuesday night, and it's like, oh my gosh, it's just a day and a half home, and then we leave again.
Yeah, so my flight is also Wednesday morning, but I live near an international airport, so it's not. I mean, not that I'm flying internationally, but I'm just saying, like, I live near a big airport.
Big
so, yeah. What happens when you live in like the DC area? You kind of are around a lot of the stuff. But so I think my flight's at like 10:15, which is not too bad. So it's not like I'm flying in like super early, but anyway, yeah. Traveling is never easy for me.
7:30, I think. Oh yeah, no, traveling is not easy at all.
Which means then you have to be at the airport at like what, 5?
Yeah, if it was just me, I would be comfortable anytime between 5 and 6 with 3 kids. Sometime between 4:30 and 5 is probably when we'll shoot to get there, because you got to check things and you got to get them all through security, and if something weird happens, you don't want to. Yeah, you just want to have plenty of time to not, to go sit at the gate for an hour or an hour and a half or so.
Anyway.
Goodness. I'm seeing some great questions. We'll stay away from the Wind and Truth spoilery answers / questions until probably like closer to 8. We're gonna have a little bit less non-spoiler time because of things we're talking about. We just have a lot of con crunching, and we only have 1 chapter this week. So, but it's a big chapter. So
I was thinking we can probably start doing spoiler stuff a little bit early, since you have to. I think because you have less time today, so we can we can get to the spoiler stuff quicker.
Perfect. That was my thought as well. Nathan has a non-Wind and Truth question. Nathan says, if you could create a speed bubble like Marasi, would you burn some cadmium to cadmium? No. Yes. Yeah, cadmium to get to Friday sooner.
Honestly, no. Well, would I? Well, why would I want to get to Friday? Because like Thursday's gonna be fun.
Yeah. I think they mean the book releasing, right? Yeah. Maybe maybe to the flight, like that way you could at least get.
Yeah, I would just skip the flight and all that stuff. but how would because then you would just miss your flight, right? Like you can't when you're inside the cadmium bubble, you can't do anything, right?
Yeah, you'd have to time it, right? So you'd burn it to get to the flight, and then you'd get on the flight, and then maybe burn it during the flight to like. But that we actually is a plane big enough to where it wouldn't just like rip the plane apart, because the wagon or the train was fine, but the wagon was not. I think feels like a plane would be closer to a train than a car, but I don't know. It's tricky.
I don't know. It sounds like a lot of work. I'll just deal
with the anxiety.
I'll just deal with the anxiety.
It's like some of those memes and things I've seen through like therapy TikTok where the person's like, well, I do this and I do this and I do this and I do this and then I'm fine. And the therapist is like, that's trauma. Like, that's not a good thing that you do all this thing.
I know. And I'm the kind of person that I enjoy the vacation after it's over. Like I'm like, I want to have gone through it already. I want to like look back at all the pictures, but I don't want to actually go through it. So I don't know what that says about me, but anyway, that's just just where we are.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Oh, goodness. And John S., thanks for coming early. 7:30, I think, is going to overall be just a better. We're both more awake. We have the option to run later without killing everybody, and seems like it's going to work pretty well. And then we'll figure out. I don't fly out next Sunday until like 3 Mountain, so we might. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we'll have to skip next week because my flight does not come back into. I don't land on the East Coast until like 7 or 8 p.m. Yeah. So there's no way I'm gonna like then get home and want to show my face to anybody. No.
No, that makes sense to me. Um, yeah, maybe. I mean, we might perhaps. I don't know. We'll look at maybe what Saturdays, because you'll be free. I mean, free-ish most of the day on Saturday. Are you able to do that on Saturday? Question mark.
Well, not until after sundown, so
Okay.
I can't until
Totally fair.
like let's say I think probably about it's pretty early though because sundown's pretty early right now. So I'll
Yeah.
be back. I have to check and see the exact schedule, but we'll see. For sure by like 7, 8, I'm fine. But yeah, not during the day.
Okay. Cool.
We'll have to see.
Yeah, that makes sense. Have you picked out anything that's like big looking forward to at Dragon Seal? Like that's on the schedule that you definitely want to be there for?
So the schedule was one of those things that was causing my anxiety to like go really high. Just the idea of like I have to go on here and choose things is not happening. So I was like, okay, a few days ago I was like, I'm just gonna do it. I'm gonna go on there. I'm gonna look at the schedule. Most of the stuff was booked up, but I was like, I think I remember CJ saying that like for some of these things they're not really gonna be checking tickets, so it'll be fine. Except for the stuff that's like the ones you have to buy tickets for that are like the big major events, which I didn't really want to go to anyway. So there were a couple of panels that I was, looking forward to. And of course, I want to check out your panel also. That's on Thursday, right? So it's not going to be an issue for me.
That's right.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Because you're going to be on it, and I also know Brooke from Cosmere Conversations, and she's going to be on it. So I definitely wanted to make sure I came and supported you guys. But then there was there was one on like traditional publishing that was really interesting to me. And there was another one that I like put down on my schedule that sounded interesting. I don't remember what it is on the top of my head at the moment. But yeah, there were a lot that looked really interesting. Fortunately, a lot of the ones that I thought looked really interesting are ones that I'm not going to be able to be there for. But we're not going to think about that. We're just going to enjoy what I'm there for.
Yeah.
But honestly, like the thing that I'm most excited about is getting to see everybody and meet everyone. I don't know if I guess we'll talk about this on the Discord. If we are planning on like getting together at some point during the day to meet everybody from the Discord, but or at night, I don't know if people are planning anything Wednesday night or Thursday night. I know you guys are doing the ball, but in any case, that's what I'm really excited for.
Yeah. And I think one of the places that's fun for meetups as well is because they have a bunch of them planned on like the second floor looking out over the main area is for cosplayers. So they've got like a Hoid meetup, which is just all the different Hoids, and Radiance and their Spren, and Parshendi and Bridge 4, and just a whole bunch of different groups throughout the weekend. Or the week. And
that's so
weekend.
Fun.
Yeah.
I got my the one cosplay that I'm going to do is I got a glove, so I'll have my safe hand covered. Yes. But that's it. That's the extent of my cosplaying. I don't know. It's just not my thing. But I'm excited to see everyone else's because it's so like it's such a different medium like to what I'm used to. The more 3D and so that's really cool. I think it's awesome.
Well, my wife wanted me to tell you that your Sesebron drawing that you have provided a lot of inspiration because there were not a lot of really. She didn't like a lot of the designs that were out there, but she really liked the Sesebron that you have. So,
thank you. That's so nice.
And I like it too. It is going to be a fun one. It's got it's not going to be as open as him, but it'll be kind of that white robe with the way we're doing his like the bending of light thing is that illuminating fabric in like the sleeve, I guess the shoulder, and then in the collar. And then in the cape as well. So it'll be super fun.
That's so cool. I wonder how many people do Warbreaker cosplay because I feel like, even with
Not
fan
many.
art.
Yeah.
No, I think it's awesome because every time I look up like fan art for Warbreaker, just my stuff's the only stuff that comes up. And I'm always like, can someone else do Warbreaker fan art so that I can see other people's interpretations of this story? But
I would say the other favorite one I have is the Sandra Branderson Romantasy cover for Warbreaker. Oh, that one's really good. It's just
that's great. All of those. Marie is she's awesome.
Yeah, I used a lot of her art for the recap panel because we had to put our art into a slideshow and all that. There was a really funny moment. One of the Danny Mata, the other contributor for that panel, he had, one of his credits was to an artist by the name of Stinky Panda. We were just like, yep, love the internet and love. Sometimes you're just like, hey, this is the art that I need, and it's a little bit different name than maybe I would have picked for the thing. Oh man, I am officially caught up on all things chronologically before Wind and Truth. I technically still need to read or finish reading Sunlit Man and Yumi to like finish my Cosmere in a year since March reread. So
Wow.
I'm this close.
That is very impressive to get through the entire Cosmere in 1 year.
Yeah,
So
9 months really, even, right? Because it started in like March was the first month that we did it, and I'm just like, oh my god.
was that Zach's or Lord
Yeah,
Loopy's?
it was with Zach, with Lord Loopy. Yeah, it was super fun. We're currently debating. There's like a poll going on right now as to what the next, because it's going to turn into a book club, and it's either the Wheel of Time, the Children of Time, or the Dresden Files, are the three options.
I thought I saw him say something about Red Rising on the Discord.
I'm sorry. The next. That's fair.
Next.
That's fair. The next one is Red Rising, and then he is a very big forward thinker. Plus, it takes a long time to come up with the reading schedule, because he breaks it down to an hour and a half to 2 hours per day. So it looks like it's going to be Wheel of Time, but it might be Children of Time. Which, have you ever read Children of Time?
I haven't. Who's the author for who?
It's Tchaikovsky, Adrian Tchaikovsky.
Okay.
Yeah, he is a sci-fi author. Does a bunch of different sci-fi series and standalones. But this one is, what if super spiders evolved on a planet and got to the point of space travel? What would that look like?
I will not be reading that one. You lost me at super spiders.
At one point, they enslave ants that are like super ants, and they turn the ants into their computers, because like the ants are able to move around in the way that like data moves in a computer, and it's so cool. It's so cool.
Enjoy.
Eventually they meet super squid and octopi and like learn to communicate with them.
Octopi are already like super creatures. They're also
exactly
really
exactly.
So
I know the spiders like pushes a lot of people off. One of the really cool things about it is it's all about like, because humans, spiders, octopi, and like this parasitic fungi all end up meeting and having to figure out, how do we communicate with each other when what's natural to me is completely unintelligible to you, right? Because like the spider is over there tapping, and the human's like, oh, if only they could speak. And then the human is like, blah, 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 blah. And the spider like, oh, if only he could speak. And it's so fascinating to figure out how to learn to communicate between different groups.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's like for with sci-fi, it's much more about like the concept, or it's much more about like, exploring big ideas in terms of like, I'm trying to think of how to best explain this. It's much more involved in like the ideas, whereas fantasy, I think, also is about ideas, but it's a little bit more on a grander scale. I'm not explaining this well. I don't know. Like, something about sci-fi is very much like, what if something? And then it's kind of like, let's explore an extreme of like, what if, like you're saying, like, what if giant spiders, ruled the world or something like that.
Yeah.
Which is very cool. I've never really been able to get into sci-fi. As much as I love Red Rising, it's like my second favorite series, but a lot of sci-fi for me, I haven't really been able to get into, so.
Yeah, I mean, there's a good argument that Red Rising is a future set fantasy, not a sci-fi, right? Like,
yeah,
it is.
I sort of say it's like
much
it's
less
like the
sci-fi.
opposite of,
yeah,
it's sort of the opposite of Brandon's books. Whereas Brandon's books you could sort of describe as being like fantasy sci-fi, and Red Rising is sort of like sci-fantasy. It's sci-fi, but it's pretty light sci-fi stuff.
Yeah, I agree. Because one of the ways that, and that's why with this definition, one of the reasons why Brandon's books work so well from a sci-fi mindset is often sci-fi is the science is driving the narrative. So like the resolution of the science or the understanding of the science drives forward your ability to resolve the problem. And that's all of Brandon's magic systems, right? Is like, oh, if we can learn this and figure this out, then we can resolve this. Not all, but many.
Yeah. I just want to say that my thoughts, my future, put it in what I was trying to say, put it very nicely. We said sci-fi is what if, fantasy is more of a metaphor, and that's perfect. That's exactly what I was trying to say.
I like that.
Yeah.
Let's see. There's a conversation. Maticus, Isabella, and John S. are all talking about Sunlit Man, whether it is essential or should be reading before Wind and Truth. Do you have any thoughts?
Honestly, it's hard to say without having read Wind and Truth. My gut would say it's not essential, but it is. That is how Brandon intended it to be. Obviously, it came out before Wind and Truth, so you can definitely read it before. I doubt that it's going to be essential. I think there are some things we've talked about, not to spoil anything, but there are certain things that we have talked about with the preview chapters where we're like, oh, this is clearly referencing something in Sunlit Man, but it's just a reference. I don't think there's going to be any major plot points that are going to be unexplained without Sunlit Man.
Yeah, I would say that it is one of those books. I mean, Brandon is a good publication order author. Like, you can always go to his publication order and just read from left to right, but you can also read any series in that way as well. And so he purposefully did not call Sunlit Man a Stormlight novella. He called it Stormlight adjacent. And so I think it's one of those things where it will be great before Wind and Truth and it'll be great after Wind and Truth. And both of the reads will be different than you would have experienced if you'd read either first, but they're not better or worse than each other. They're just different.
I think of it the same way that like Warbreaker, I'm seeing so many people now because I think a lot of people are picking up the Cosmere because of the new book coming out. And I see so many videos of people being like, I'm reading Stormlight, but now everyone's saying I have to stop and read Warbreaker. And I'm like, no, you don't. Like, just read how you want to read it. Like, you can read Warbreaker, but people make it sound like if you don't read Warbreaker, you won't understand what's going on. You definitely will. You'll be fine. So that's how I kind of view it in the same way. Like, there are some things you might miss, some references you might miss. You might not understand who this person is, but it's not like, it's fine.
Yeah, 100%. And Sanderson understandably, and I think positively, contributes to it in the sense of he'll call Warbreaker a prequel to Stormlight Archive and things like that. And it's like, I mean, you can read it. It's again, your reading is going to be different reading it before Oathbringer and before Rhythm of War. I certainly don't think you have to read it before Words of Radiance. There is a cameo character that you'll better understand having read Warbreaker, but it's just different reading orders, different ways to appreciate.
Yeah, I get so many questions of people saying to me like, how do I start the Cosmere? How do I read it? And I'm like, just read whatever you want to read. There's no order to it. Like, I wouldn't recommend starting with Mistborn Era 2 necessarily, but like, other than that, you're fine. Like, it's not a series that has to be read, in order. So
that used to be Jasonian's recommended reading order. Was Mistborn Era 2. Yeah. I think maybe it was just the first of Era 2, possibly. I can't remember exactly how he did it, but I do remember he came out with a video that was like, wait, maybe this wasn't the best place to start. I think because of how Lost Metal ends up ending. And so it's weird to like go all the way to Lost Metal and then come back. But again, It's just different. It's just a different reading order. I would say that Mistborn 1 through 3, its mysteries and discoveries are worth finding in a first read through, and you lose a lot of that with Mistborn Era 2 read first. So
I think also some of Kelsier's story gets spoiled in a way that you probably don't want it to be. So
yeah, I would agree. Hey, Butts, welcome. Enrique, I'm seeing you in there. John S. Bag of Pudding. I heard you saw you hop in earlier. Don't know if you're still here or not, but glad to have y'all. Okay.
So before we get into more Cosmere stuff, because I must ask you. Have you seen Wicked?
Oh, not yet. Okay, this was a whole thing, Shandel. I got to Nashville. My niece was like, Wicked sounds amazing. We should go see Wicked. And I'm with her and my kids at the playground, and I get a text from my wife that's like, people in this house have negative opinions about Wicked. And I'm like, what does that even mean? What does it mean to have negative? I don't even understand that sentence.
What is this feeling?
What is this feeling? For real. Oh, so, no, I didn't get a chance to see Wicked. But I watched clips and I listened to the whole soundtrack while I was driving out to Nashville at one point, and I loved it. I loved the surprise cameo that happens in One Short Day. That was so cool because I was just listening, right? And I went, wait a minute, I know those voices. And I checked the credits and I'm like, yeah, awesome. So what did you think? I'm assuming that you have seen it.
Yes,
Yeah.
I saw it last week and I thought it was phenomenal. I cried, and I'm not a huge not even like by any of the like more emotional stuff. It was that first scene when you just hear Glinda doing the no one mourns the wicked, and I just got so emotional. It's my favorite show, and just to see it on the big screen, it was phenomenal. I really want to see it again, and I was thinking it would be really fun to go and see it when I'm in Utah with a bunch of people. If there's anybody else, I'm like, is anybody else gonna want to see this movie? I was thinking of like bringing it up, and I'm like, they're gonna think I'm crazy, like that I want to go and see this like musical. But if anybody wants to go and see it with me, I would love that. Would be, I think it would be so fun to do like maybe Wednesday night or one of the nights where we're not doing anything. But in any case, I loved it. I thought it was great. I thought it was really true to the show, but they translated it really well. So some of the like dancing through life was just incredible. I think the one that's gone really viral is the what is this feeling? The loathing, which the choreography for that is brilliant. I think like I had like minor complaint was with Cynthia Erivo as Elphaba, and she was great. She was really, really good, and man, can she sing. I don't know if this was her or if this was the direction, but she played Elphaba a little bit more muted. And it could be that was the right choice, because I've only ever seen it as a show, and stage acting is very different from film acting. And especially when you have Glinda, who's such a cartoon character. So I think that's probably why they had her be a little bit more muted. My only problem was that I wish that with some of the jokes, she was a little bit sharper, because there were some of the jokes where I was like, I wished it had just been a little bit sharper. So that was like my tiny little like nitpicky complaint. And then also I love that they did live singing, and we've talked about this, but I don't know if it was the right. I think that like maybe it could have been done better. I don't know. There were some times where I was like, I think like not the singing, but just some of the like sound. It just didn't sound as cohesive because it wasn't, anyway. So those are my like tiny nitpicks, but everything else I thought was phenomenal. The sets were amazing. The obviously singing and dancing was incredible. It's just it's so good. It was so good.
It's awesome. I mean, if I had to do a monkey's paw type scenario with with the movie musicals that have come out over the last 10 years, Wicked is probably the one that I would want to be the best out of the ones that have come out. And I think it probably is, ? I can't think of one
what are the others?
Was pulled off better. You had In the Heights, you had Les Mis, you had Cats, you had Belle, you had, I mean, all the Disney ones, right, count as
leaving aside musicals. The Disney ones, because I don't count.
So I mean, the ones that come to my mind are Les Mis, Cats, In the Heights, and
Greatest Showman.
Greatest Showman, the Steven Spielberg one that they did.
What was that?
I should know the name of that, but I can't remember it off the top of my head.
West Side Story.
West Side Story. There we go. Which I've heard was good. But it seems like this one really knocked it out of the park, and that makes me very happy.
Yeah, I mean, I think also like I've seen some people which was so interesting to me, because I've seen the show a lot, but I also live in an area where I have access to Broadway. Like if you don't live in a city that's close to anywhere, so you might know nothing about the show. And so for me, I think it was a totally different experience. And for some people, and I see some people, I'm wondering how many people picked up on some of the nuance, on some of the references to the Wizard of Oz that are going to pay off in the second half. And I'm really excited to see how people, because I saw some people being like, boy, that character of Fiyero just didn't need to be there. And I'm like, but does he? Like, I think, so I'm really excited to see how they do. I'm really interested to see what they do with the second half, because the second half of the show is much darker, and I'm wondering how dark they're going to go, because it's quite dark. The first movie, Wicked 1, is sort of like, Hogwarts and, it's fun school shenanigans. And the second half of the show is not that. So I'm really interested to see how they do it.
Elphaba does a guerrilla warfare /
Yeah.
It just, yeah. And that's not even getting into the book plot stuff that happens. Like, oh my gosh, it's a lot. I really appreciated all the discourse and like really a better reading of the text, even for myself, because I've never really just sat and thought about that opening part where you do have Glinda really more thinking about herself in that song, and just she's the one that's alone, she's the wicked that's alone, right? She's not it's just or she
Yeah,
she
I think
worries, I think, that she is, right, because she is alone.
right. Right. And I think because it's a film and you could have close-ups on Ariana Grande's face, you could really like she played it a little bit more like subtle than you can do in a show, which was really nice. And there were some things that they added in, like her throwing oh, you haven't seen it yet. What am I saying? Anyway,
I saw a clip. I know what you're talking
okay.
about. You're
Not
good,
that it's a
you're
major spoiler, but I thought that was a really nice touch.
yes.
My sister was also
Yes,
like,
I agree.
she was like, oh, I didn't want to look up any like clips because I was going to see spoilers. And then I was like, wait a second, I already know what happens. I don't care about spoilers. But yeah, so there were some really, really nice things.
How do you feel about the end change to Defying Gravity? Like the very
Not a
last
fan.
little bit. I agree.
fan.
It's a movie thing, right? It has to be like we need this to feel final. We have to hook back into the leitmotif of Unlimited or whatever.
I'll tell you, they dragged it out too long.
Yeah,
It's
I think that's
just
fair.
dragged out too long. The this is the thing. When you go to see the show, Defying Gravity is the end of Act 1, and she does that like super high note, and she's up in the air, and you got the whole chorus behind her, and then the stage goes black, and that's intermission, and it's just chills. And so, while it was sung amazing, and the whole lead up to it was really good, and I was wondering how they were going to do it because I was like, in a show you can get away with things that you can't get away with in a film, and they did a really good job with getting them to that place and all of that. But that being said, it took too long. Each like part of the song was split up by like more action, and I just wish that they had been a little punchier. And I do wish they had done what they do in the show, which is once she finishes that high note, the screen goes black. I just think it would have had more of a punch. And then they could have just screen goes black, Wicked Part 2 coming, da da da, and it would have just been more like you would have had that impact. Plus the CGI there wasn't that great, but again, these are all like tiny nitpicks. Like it was still amazing. So yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, because I haven't obviously that's a clip they're not going to release, and I've not seen one unofficially yet. But I don't know how much longer does it have after she finishes that note? Surely not much longer.
Not much longer. It's just it's just a little bit more music and whatever. I don't want to spoil it in case anybody hasn't seen it, but I just wish that it had been true to the show. Where that was the one thing where I was like, I wish that they had done that. But again, these are like the singing was incredible, and the way that they translated it, because part of the amazingness is to see her flying because it's a show. That's not that amazing in a film, so they had to like find another way to make it emotional, and I thought they did a really good job with that. But so that was like my little nitpick. Everything else, like the costuming was incredible. The one short day was amazing. Like just seeing them walk through Oz, it's almost line for line the show. Like I was reciting it along with them. They really did a great job with it. So
yeah. Well, and I think to their credit, ironic, pun intended, but like they credited the writer of the book for the show, and it shows because like, it's like, hey, we have a really successful script. Why are we going to change it just to like get, Oscar credit for original or, adaptation or whatever.
Yeah.
It's
and
so
they did
silly.
it right. They didn't add in any songs. They didn't like change. Everything was, everything was the same.
I was shocked. I was shocked by that. I was the right choice. It just, they never can resist adding in a song for best original song, in a movie.
Mm-hmm. They may do that in part 2, because I was thinking about the songs that they have left to do in part 2.
Yeah.
Are not as like the songs in the first half of the show are the better songs, with like the exception of No Good Deed and For Good are like the only 2 songs that I would say are like the standouts in that
sure.
tour.
Yes, absolutely. Have you seen Leo the Poet, that Ariana has said that they tried to make Loathing, I think it's Loathing, or What Is This Feeling? One of the 2 songs, they tried to make it like a hip hop thing, and she was like, no, I'm Glinda, I'm not Ariana playing Glinda. Was it popular? Thanks Leo. Yeah, it's great. And Leo says there are great. 3 original songs in part 2.
I'm not surprised, because I was just thinking, I was like, the songs that they have in the second half of the show are just not as strong, I think, as the songs in the first half, and so they need like a big ballad or something. I mean, they have As Long As You're Mine, they have the Hunt for the Witch, they have like, it's a lot of it's not, what's the one that she sings right at the beginning, Thank Goodness. These are all like, they're fine.
Oh, sure.
But like the only big vocal song they have is No Good Deed, which is incredible, but it's quite short. So
Yeah, that's true. Huh. It'll be interesting to see what they do with it because I have not heard any uh, specifics as to what they plan.
Yeah, it was so funny at the end of the movie. So it comes on the screen. It says, Wicked Part One or whatever. My grandmother who was sitting next to me, she goes, "I have to live a whole other year." I was like, "Oh no!" I was like, "Yes, you do."
That
Anyway,
is, yeah.
living me
Well,
well.
don't tell her not to start Sanderson because then you got to live, or to start Sanderson because then you got to live like another 40, 50 years.
I know. Yeah. All right, we should probably
Fortosaurus
talk about
Rex.
cosmic stuff.
Yeah, we are both very excited for Nexus. How early people line up for Nexus? If you're thinking, so that one saxophone guy, if we're talking about like entering, I would just show up. I don't know that there's going to be a huge line like to get in the first day. If you're talking about books, my understanding is you can start lining up for like 1 to 1,000 numbered copies at like 4 a.m. ish Wednesday, and then they'll keep that line open until they've given out all 1,000 numbers all day. So, if you show up and you want that number 1 through 1,000, check in and maybe it'll still be there.
Do you have to? Because somebody was saying on a different Discord than I'm on. Somebody was saying that you have to sign. You have to like go and sign in on Wednesday when you get there.
There's badges available for pickup Wednesday. So I think they said noon to 6, maybe. I'll check on that. But yeah, it's something like that, noon to 6 or noon to 8. You can get your badges early and not have to then wait in registration on Thursday.
Gotcha.
My hotel is like a 1 minute walk. Yeah, it's the on-site one. So we'll just be there. Noon to 8. Thank you, Jason. Gotcha. All the official information.
So anyway, so maybe we'll see. Maybe we'll do like we can see who else, any other musical crossover fans, and we can do like run out and go and see Wicked all together. It'll be fun. But
I love it.
Anyway, so okay, we should really talk about. Should we get into the spoiler chapters because we're running.
Let's do it. This is your spoiler warning for Wind and Truth. Let's real quick. This is like forever ago. But we had a question. We have our classic Maya question. Do you think Adolin will bond Maya by the end? Do you want to take that one, Shandel, while I find the other question?
So our now joint answer is we do not think that they will have a Nahel bond, but we do think that they will have some sort of bond, and Maya will gain some more sentience. There will be some bond between them, but no, we don't think Aelin's going to become a Radiant. That's basically the gist of it.
Yeah. I don't think either of us would object to it or hate it. We just think that Sanderson's going to do something a little bit different. Who did this? Philippoff said, "My question is, why does Taravangian continue to be evil after becoming Odium?"
He doesn't see it that way. That's what I would say. Yeah. He just sees it as I am, bringing enlightenment to the world.
I do think his perspective is, because there's that conversation with Cultivation where he realizes if everyone is devoted to him, then he can have the control that he wants. And so I think he's perfectly fine giving up on people's free will and people's choices and all that. And he's just going, okay, if I can eliminate every other shard, then by default, everyone will be mine. And then I can do whatever I want with them. But yeah, I mean, his obtaining of power is the proof that his morality was always questionable, that it wasn't really about saving everyone. It was about being in control and being in power. And now we see how he uses it.
Right. I mean, this is part of that conversation that he has with Cultivation, where she says, well, if you want world peace, you can sort of stop the war. And he's like, no, that would just be a band-aid. And it's like, right. So you don't actually want peace. You just want, you're in charge. So yeah.
Oh man. Let's see. I think those were the big.
Leo the poet is getting on my last nerve, Leo.
Uh-oh.
Because Adolin is going to be Dalinar's champion, so gotta be careful around here saying stuff like that, Leo.
Oh goodness. Do I think that Teft needed to die for Kaladin to advance his oaths? need is a strong word. I think Kaladin would have gotten there after a few more weeks with the people he was helping, right? I think at a certain point he would have talked it through to realize like, oh, I am holding on to some stuff that I shouldn't be. And so I think he could have gotten there, but certainly Tef's dying was the fastest way for him to get there.
I think he probably would have needed to lose someone. I think before Rhythm of War came out, the debate was, I think most people assumed it was going to be Lirin. I don't know, because this is that was the problem in Oathbringers, that he couldn't bring himself to admit that, and that's why he couldn't rescue Dalinar. So I think that he would have had to lose someone. I don't know if it specifically needed to be Teft, but I do think that Kaladin would not have been able to come to that realization on his own without losing someone.
I think that's fair. What do you think about Enrique's theory that Shallan will be both champions? Oh man, with a light weaving, that would be hilarious.
Be really difficult to read. I would be just confused the whole time, is what I would say.
Yeah. Oh, and then Moash redemption arc, and then we'll start talking about the events of this chapter.
Oh, Leo the poet just knows how to push all my buttons today. All of them. I'm joking, Leo. We like having you here, but no, I don't think Moash is going to get a redemption arc.
I would not be shocked if one is presented, and I am very much looking forward to seeing what Moash does with it, because I think it will be very interesting. I know that Sanderson has said that one of the characters in this book did something he didn't expect. Like, he wrote them all the way to the end of their story, and then they made a different decision than he expected them to make in that moment, which is just like mind-bending to read from an author. But it could be anybody, right? But Moash is a strong contender for somebody that you wouldn't expect to make a decision. Or maybe he expected them to make the redemptive decision, and they don't. Who knows? But it is really interesting.
I remember somebody once asking Brandon this question of like, do your characters ever do? And he said basically no, because he has everything like so plotted out. So it surprised me to hear that. But then again, I think he also said that Taravangian becoming Odium was also not planned. So
I think he said like there were multiple options, and I think that's his kind of, like, he's not a gardener. He doesn't discover a completely brand new thing, like George R. R. Martin, but he will kind of architect, I think, and allow for potential branching paths. Mm-hmm. As Renarin would say, the reality is just the lie that happened. Exactly. Or the future. All right, so we get our last epigraph. May you have the courage someday to walk away, and the wisdom to recognize that day when it arrives. Here's your first theory moment. Who needs the courage to walk away, and who needs the wisdom to recognize it in this book, do you think?
Who needs the wisdom to walk away? I mean, my first instinct is Kaladin, but it's also not. But like, Kaladin's already done that, though. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So maybe not. Also, with it being set up of like Kaladin possibly taking the throne.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. Like, is it correct that he not do it? John S. says Hoyd. Hoyd is a fair answer. Like, walk away from the fight with Odium and like leave for a bit. We know he does leave. Lost Metal and the previous books tell us that he's on Scadrial for the next 30 to 70 years, depending on what timing we're at. Leo the Poet, we are reading Wind and Truth. This is chapter 33 of Wind and Truth. We've not spoiled anything huge yet, but that's what we're talking about at the moment. Fortosaurus says the Radiance at the Recreants. So it might be Noadon, providing some wisdom that the Radiants relied upon. I like the idea that the Radiants used this as part of their reasoning to walk away. I just assume that Brandon has given it to us because some character needs it, right? Some character is going to end up using this wisdom. Cultivation is a good answer. I've kind of liked the idea for a while that maybe most of the honor and cultivation people will leave. And that Odium will then be left on Roshar by himself, like bound there. But I don't know. It would be kind of an interesting reverse Braze situation to like leave a few people on Roshar to resist odium, and then everybody else just goes elsewhere. Assuming we can, right? And mechanically, who knows? But
yeah, I'm not sure. I guess we'll have to wait and see.
yeah, Enrique, I don't know if there's an explanation for Kaladin's flute beyond. I did hear a hilarious, amazing theory recently that maybe Hoyd stole it from the Lord Ruler. Have you heard this before?
No.
In the Lord,
flute?
he has a flute referenced in like book 1, and then it's missing in book 2. And like very specifically, there's like a description of the same room in both books, and in one the flute is there, and in the other it's like there's an item that looks like there's a place where an item could have been, but now it's gone, or something ridiculous like that.
That's really fun. If that would be really cool. That would be pretty fun.
Right? I mean, we know that Hoyd's on that planet. We know that he's around. We know that he likes to take things and relics from important people. All right. Next big thing. Why is Lift transparent / translucent in the light from the spiritual realm? And what on earth does that mean? What's going on?
I have no idea. I mean, this is something like we've seen a lot in Stormlight Archive and other places in the Cosmere, is people getting glimpses or visions of themselves in other circumstances. So to me, that's what was kind of here, what I was seeing. I was like, oh, this is sort of the same thing that happened. I think it happened to Kelsier. It happened to... who else? Now that I'm thinking about
Miles
it.
100 Lives had this ability. Vin used it. Moash had it from Renarin.
Right. So that's it. I mean, and to me, I was just like, wow, like Lift is just the emotional thrust of this book. I mean, it was, we finally got the full story of why she doesn't want to grow up, which was really, sad, and sort of, was, it's a way of looking at grief, was that she had accepted in her mind that her mother was gone, but she had accepted it like she would say it, but in her mind she just hadn't fully accepted it yet. And it was heartbreaking. So, yeah, I don't know the answer to your question, but
yeah. Absolutely brutal. That whole, I mean, so much of it, right? The midriff exposed as if she didn't care that people saw she was growing up. The mama wouldn't recognize me. Mama would find somebody else. Like, oh, it's so intense and amazing. And the mother's song flowing around her, through her, comforting her. Oh, just brutal.
So what do you think, how does it fit into the spiritual realm? I mean, I guess it fits in pretty well, but do you think that's what it is that it's sort of this spiritual realm, aura that's like leaking out, and so then she starts to see like, other versions of herself, sort of the multiverse?
Yeah, it to me it felt like, because like to me what Gold and Mal Atium and Renarin, what they're all doing is, to use a light metaphor, they're causing the light of the spiritual realm to reflect off of you, and when it reflects off of you, it's revealing something you could have been, right? Some version of yourself that might have been, or might still could be, possibly. And so this is like pure spiritual realm energy, just like shooting out of the perpendicularity. And so that made a lot of sense to me as just like especially for Lift being a nearly in the cognitive realm entity, she would be even more connected to the three realms. I liked that whole section a ton. John S., I don't think you're reading too much into it. I think that
it's explicit.
I mean, at minimum, they're from the region Iriali, even if they're not like followers of the One and all that it might mean to be capital I Iriali by like genetics or by descent. But she's certainly from that region, Rao Alorum, which is one of the places we think that Kaladin saw. The RPG recently put out a really cool picture of Rao Alorum. Also, speaking of her lineage, did you catch who her great uncle is?
No.
So her great uncle, I'm like 90% certain, is the fisherman from Interlude 1, way back in Way of Kings.
Oh, okay. I never would have caught that.
Right? Well, she says her great uncle had always sworn by the name of the god he hated in case that god was watching. So we think back to that interlude where he would curse by New Rallic but he was really Vun Makak or whatever was he had the two gods that he one was the brother of the other, and he worshipped the one, but you had to pretend to worship his brother so his brother wouldn't get jealous. And I was like, Sanderson, that is just such a wild, let me just connect those two dots from 5 books apart.
That's so funny. I mean, I'll be honest, Way of Kings is the book that I've read the least, so I would not have looked at it. I wouldn't have recognized that, but
yeah. Well, and he's gonna connect it deeply by bringing back Thinker and Grunt and Bayonne and all them in one of the future interludes. So I'm sure that was on his mind to like provide some more connective tissue back.
Mm-hmm. Let me ask you a question. Going forward a little bit with Hoyd rescuing her.
Mm-hmm.
Who he says Hoyd looks into Shadesmar and he sees a remnant of one corpse who is Malwish. Who is that? Was that somebody we were supposed to? I mean, my first thought was that it's what's her name?
Yaddle.
Yaddle, but do we think that that's a Yaddle?
So I think, if I remember correctly, and I would have to go back to the Shallan chapters, but I believe it was Mraize, Yatil, and then another Malwish person. Okay. And so it's the third one that we killed. But we still have Yatil and Mraize in the spiritual realm, in theory.
I was thinking that was like very offhandedly killing off a pretty major character. Right. I was just like, wait, who else could this be?
Oh, yeah. Super not a fan of that if that was to be what happened. But there were definitely 3 Ghost Bloods, and I'm 90% certain that the implication is there was a third Malwish person.
Gotcha.
In addition to Yatil and Mraize.
Mm-hmm. So should we address the Gav getting stuck in the spiritual realm debate that's going to?
Can I tell you the scene that I'm terrified I'm going to read? It's Gav's perspective, and he's terrified, and then he suddenly feels a hand on his shoulder, and he looks up to a scarred face of a man standing next to a woman in a red mask. And it's Mraize and Yatil have found him first, and they're going to like mentor him in the spiritual realm, and he's going to think that they're his saviors and they're sent by Dalinar, and they're going to like manipulate him in some way.
All of the possibilities I don't like. So last week, like John S. is saying, we both theorized, I theorized that, because you had already read it, but
I had read it.
Both of us, but we both had theorized that Gav and Lift were going to get stuck in the spiritual realm. Mm-hmm. We were half right that Gav gets stuck in the spiritual realm, so I was, at first when I was reading, I was like, oh yes, I finally got something right. And then I was like, no, I got it wrong. So,
Monkey's paw. Let Gav be stuck in the spiritual realm with Lift. Gav will be stuck.
Exactly. So we were talking about this in the Discord, all of the options I dislike, except for like Dalinar and Navani finding him and being like, come on, grandson, we're going to just keep you safe, which I think is the least likely option to happen. But that all of that being said, I don't like any of the possibilities here.
Yeah. This chapter, I read it and I immediately texted Josh and I was like, no, this is the first Gavinoris champion fact that actually works. Because all we need is for him to pop out as like a 20-year-old, having experienced 20 years in the spiritual realm and having learned all the stuff, like all the wrong facts, right? All we need to do is for him to learn selective history and to pop out going, no, Odium deserves to win this. And Dalinar, you should actually serve Odium, so killing you is the best way to make that happen. And, I don't like this. Gav is a crying child. What's the first image we have of Odium? It's comforting a crying child as they die. So Odium would absolutely want to show Gavinor a future where no one has to suffer the way that his father did and the way that he did. So if Odium can convince him that, hey, I want a better future for everyone, it could happen.
I just don't like any of it. I don't like...
Yeah. This is the first time I don't like it from this would be so sad. In the past, it was I don't like it because it's dumb and it just feels awful. And it's like, no, they're not going to make a child fight Dalinar. That's not going to work.
Right.
This is the first time I could see it. This is the
I'll
first
tell you,
time.
right. The idea that like it was going to come down to Dalinar would have to kill a child, and so therefore he would forfeit. I was like, that's dumb. That doesn't make any sense. If it's like there's more of a narrative, like you're talking about, where he has grown up in the 10 days and he now has a grudge against Dalinar, blah blah blah. I still wouldn't like it, but at least it would make narrative sense.
Yes.
I mean, yeah, I guess I like my I like my characters to be good people. I don't want him to be sad. I don't want him. It's also again like what would he have to see in order for him to turn against Dalinar at this point?
So I think if he could see history from the perspective of it's the fight between Honor and Odium's people that is causing the problems, and Odium is trying to get everybody, obviously Odium has to lie to him, right? Like, has to be the deceiver angelic being. I mean, Odium's already done the whole appearing one way to one group of people and one way to a different, so he's got that deceiver roll down. So yeah, I mean, something like, hey, I'm the one who's going to stop all the suffering, and I know that my predecessor hurt you, but I'm not him anymore. I'm the new, grandfatherly Odium that's going to make things better. I don't know. I could see it.
Right, because Gav does know that like Vyre's the one who killed his father, and we definitely saw him say like, I'm gonna take revenge on anybody who was there. So I don't know. Gosh, I really hope that's not how it goes. I mean, even just yeah, I really hope that that's not where we go with this. I'm wondering if like maybe that's it and we don't see Gav again, and then he'll show up in book 6 or something like that, or he shows up somewhere else.
Yeah.
Which again, all of these options are not good.
No, none of them.
I don't want to see this child who's already been through so much being hurt. I really don't. So.
I mean, for your Young Avengers theory, you do always have to have the weird wild card character, and he could definitely fit the weird wild card character. Mm-hmm. My other theory and prediction is that Dalinar and Navani end up somewhere else, and Renarin, Relaine, and Shallan end up where Dalinar and Navani were supposed to go. So that they are appearing at the arrival of humans on Shinovar, and they don't have any context, right? They have no reason to know what they're seeing. My favorite headcanon on that is that Shallan will absolutely see her mom as a child, and she'll be like, that little girl looks just like me. What's going on? And then be, oh, Shadowrock, come over here, and it would just be beautiful. It'd be nice little red little hint as we go.
Just to go back to the Gavinor thing for a second.
Oh yeah, please.
Here's my last thing on it. I'm thinking about like how you would have, because unless Gav becomes a viewpoint character, which is possible, but as of right now he isn't. So the question is like, in order to see that kind of character arc, it's such a massive transformation. Yeah. We would only be able to see it through Taravangian's eyes, if that's the case. Otherwise, because no one else is with him. So the question is, do we think that is going to happen? Do we think that it's going to be like all of this character progress that would be needed to get to the point where we could end up at the end of the book with, Dalinar comes out for his fight, and lo and behold, on the other side, it's his grandson, who's now a grown-up and vengeful against him. Could we do all of that in the amount of time that we have left, and only from the perspective of a different character?
Seems unlikely. It's not what I would expect or vote for. Yeah. Yep. I mean, turning the page to day 3 and seeing the POV characters is going to be very interesting. Yeah. I
think if Gav does become a POV character, then I would pretty much assume that he's going to be at least very involved.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair. It's very fair. We had Yanagan as a character for a POV for day 2, and he didn't end up doing a ton in this. So it's not impossible that we just get a little glimpse. But I have said that the table of contents for this book and like the day descriptions is the most spoilery of any of the books so far, because it tells you so much about what's happening. Here's the other thing, is the spiritual realm doesn't have to flow at the same time as ours. So does that mean that like we'll cut off a scene in Shinovar and then come back on day 4 because it is taking longer in our time to proceed through? You know what I'm saying? Like, I
Yeah.
don't know how he's going to split up those things. Jason, I have go ahead.
I have a feeling it's going to be as simple as possible because this is already a very long, very complex book. If you had to start jumping back and forth with this is this day for this person, and that, it would just, I think it would be too hard for most people to really read and follow.
Yeah, I agree. And I don't think we would jump back and forth. I think it would just be like a day for Dalinar lasts longer or shorter than for us. And so like his vision of Shinovar might cover a week, but only last for one day from the book's perspective. Like it's all in day 3 that happens, perhaps. I'm not 100% sure how that would work. Jason, I have not seen the table of contents yet. I presume. I mean, if nothing else, the fact that it's in 10 days instead of 5 parts is huge to that side. And then Lord Loopy, yes, the final battle in Wheel of Time is very this stretching of time thing. So Sanderson is experienced with writing characters at different flows of time. Famously, in Wheel of Time, there's like an epicenter that's important, and then everything as you go further and further from it is more normal time. So it's like time dilation. So the closer you are to it, a minute might be hours on the front lines of the battle, kind of thing.
Gotcha.
So it's possible. Just got to find out. So it allows like the Rand has like a confrontation happening at that epicenter that lasts for like 100 pages relative to everybody else's, even though they're doing, you know, a bunch of different things. So you'll come back to Rand, then go out, then come back to Rand, and then go out. It has a chapter famously called The Last Battle that is as long as Harry Potter Sorcerer's Stone. Like the entire book is the length of that one chapter.
Oh my.
Yep. I don't think he'll do that for this, but it was definitely the right decision for that book.
I mean, not to that extent, but we have seen a little bit of that because, like, there are scenes that take place in one meeting, and at the same time, Kaladin and Szeth are traveling miles. So,
yes,
like, we have seen some of that, but it's not exactly what you're talking about. But it's you know, at least somewhat. You know, it's not like completely linear. So
yeah, I like that. And John S., I don't think The Spiritual Realm follows Jeremy Bearimy, but I do love that show, and I appreciate the reference. Oh, man. Let's see. Lift becomes unawesome. That was really fun. She'd never thought to increase friction, which I thought was just hysterical.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And then we have, you know, Hoyd to the rescue-ish. Halfway.
Ish. You got both of us right. Lift? What?
Yeah. And then we get like, so then we sort of the fallout of like, now what? And Hoyd's basically like, we lie through our teeth. Like that's just, we just pretend that everything is fine because if Dalinar doesn't come back, basically not only is the bargain between Odium and Dalinar void, he's just let out into the Cosmere in general. He'll just be free to rampage the Cosmere, which is, you know, again, like Hoyd, did you not think this through? Like, did nobody think of this possibility happening? Anyway, it seems like this whole plan.
You did tell them it was really dangerous.
I mean, just in general, like him hinging the success of this whole endeavor on, like, you know, Odium not getting out. It seems like this was maybe not thought through entirely.
Turns out there were a lot of ways for Odium to win. There's supposed to be 0 ways for Odium to win.
Yeah. But we do kind of see Hoyd being like, uh-oh.
For real. And I am trying to I've been trying to remember all week because I had read this chapter a few weeks ago, and I think it was you made a comment about Lift not being very regal or something like that. I wish I could remember exactly what the wording was, But I just imagine then her having to pretend to be Navani for 8 days, and I was like, I can't say anything. That's really funny.
Well, do we think that she's gonna have to pretend to? I was thinking more like they're just gonna pretend that everything's fine and dandy, and just okay, yeah, they're in the spiritual realm. Let's see if they come back, like sort of thing.
Oh no, they're walking around the tower in this chapter. Hoyd and Dalinar and Navani are.
What are you talking about?
With Lopin. So Lopin sees them after the explosion. When Lopin sees them, that's Hoyd as Dalinar and Lift as Navani.
Okay, I mean, I haven't read this chapter since last week, so like that part of the chapter. So maybe I did not pick up on that at all.
Yeah. So that's after the explosion, and Lopin is Lord Lupi says Lopin talks about Navani eating chowta for the first time and shrugging and things.
I think also like in general, like Lopin's not my favorite, so I think I just I was like, all right, like I'm just gonna like not sure. I just kind of skimmed through it, and so I did not pick up on that at all. That's really funny. So he's just like light weaving on top of them.
Yep. Yep. He has made himself look like Dalinar.
That seems like a great plan too.
Right. People coming up to Lift asking for her help, and it's just yeah, whatever. Now I will say, well, let's make sure there's nothing else here before we get to Lopin, because there is a thing I wanted to comment about with Lopin.
There's a lot that there's a whole Kaladin section here that we didn't even get to.
Perfect. I couldn't remember. They skip back and forth in the POVs. So I couldn't remember exactly what the order was.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do the smart thing, of course. We lie. And now we can jump to Kaladin, and I refer to this as, instead of the dog and the dragon, this is the surgeon and the stew. Because, I don't know, to me, this felt like the perfect thematic next step for Kaladin to live the dog and the dragon moment, and for him to go, oh, I shouldn't I should still reach forward, but if I can't reach Rock's cooking of stew, I should not say I am a failure because I am not a dragon. Like, it was just, I don't know, it was some of the most beautiful it wasn't subtle in like a super subtle way, but it was I'm not going to reference the dog and the dragon, but I'm going to make you feel that Kaladin's learned the lesson of the dog and the dragon. And I loved that so much.
Yeah, I loved this scene too. The whole idea of like, because at the end of the last scene where we have like Kaladin's gonna make soup or stew, and we're like, yay! And then it turns out he's really terrible at it, and you just it was so kind of cute also just to see Kaladin be bad at something. Yes. But also just like and he has this like whole like mental breakdown. He's like, I can't do this. The only thing I've ever been good at is war. And then Syl's like, no, that's not true. And she kind of like very slowly like breaks down all of his internal arguments. She does exactly what you're supposed to do in these situations. And she's like, I'm not attracted to you for that. And when I say that, I mean like spren.
We know what you mean. Like a shell is attracted to grass. I understand.
Anyway, but she says like, no, I came to you because you were honorable and all these things. And it was such a nice little moment between the two of them. And then Kaladin like rallies himself and he's like, okay. And then he turns around and Zeth's eating the stew. And Zeth's like, if you made more of this, I would eat it. And Kaladin's like, oh, okay. Like, I don't have to be, like you're saying, it was kind of him living the moral of the dog and the dragon.
Yeah, it was. Because, you could do it more heavy-handed. You could be like, oh, I guess I'm not a failure because I'm not a dragon, or something silly like that. But it tugs at the heartstrings in just the right ways. And like whether the reader is aware of it or not, they're going to be carried back to that. Piece. Oh, I loved it so much. And Syl comforting him, like you're saying, I mean, reminding him that it wasn't the killing that was important. Perfect. Just perfection.
Mm-hmm. And then we get this whole scene between Kaladin and Zeth where basically Zeth says like, it's not that it's not that I don't need any help. It's just that I deserve this pain and therefore I shouldn't get help. And Kaladin's like, no, that's, don't do that. And they kind of have this like nice little back and forth. And we see Kaladin still struggling to play the flute. And yeah, it's
That
just a
poor
really
boy.
nice. Then again we have another scene with Kaladin still, where he's kind of wondering again, like, what do I do with my life now? Like, I'm not a surgeon, I'm not a soldier. What do I do? And she kind of says, well, what about healing people's brains, or and I was like, oh, we really are getting a Kaladin therapist.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. John S., you said, can we talk about this chapter confirming Syl being the blue girl in the vision? I do think it's still a little bit tricky with the hair, right? I think that was Shandel's hang up is her hair described as white. But yeah, I mean, she's a person shaped, visible person, blue skin. And I want to say she's appeared with white hair. Loopy and Cosmere Academy, you might be able to remember better than we can, because Zach, you just read. Zach read all of the Wind and Truth preview chapters from like Friday to today.
So
I
was wondering if he was gonna make it. I was like, because in the Discord he kept being like, I'm up to this point. I was like, oh, you're gonna make it in time for this live stream.
Yup. And then continuing to talk to the wind, which the interesting, like, you get your first indication for Kaladin and Syl that Odium has changed, because we know that, and the Urithiru people have learned that, but Kaladin doesn't know that. And so that was cool. The stones starting to speak, that was really cool, because Venli's been talking to the stones again, and the stone words are talking to the stones. And yeah, John S., the purple accent in her clothes, I think that's her signal that other people can see her. Kaladin makes the reference that she puts like a stripe of purple when other people can see her, or a stripe of color or something like that. So yeah, I'm on board with that being Syl.
She's been described as like bluish whitish before, but since there are other blue skinned people on Roshar, that does toss in a
It's a wrinkle. It definitely is. Ready for the Lopen?
Yeah, let's go to Lopen.
I think so, because it's like whatever. Yeah. Let's see. Crystal Arm.
Apparently, I completely misread this entire part of the chapter. So
I love it.
I'm gonna have to go back and reread it.
Yeah. So the thing with the Lopen that I wanted to point out is he seems very close to the fourth ideal. He, because Isasik is all like, well, we got to go save him. We got to go in there. And the Lopen is like, well, I mean, if we go in, that might cause problems, et cetera, and a lot of it is like, we need to accept that we can't go in and save them, even though that's what we want to do, which is very fourth ideal of him. And I think it'd be really fun foreshadowing for him to want a crystalline arm, and then by the end of the book to have a shard plate arm, right? Which
shard
is
arm.
Exactly. I think that'd be fun.
That would be cool.
Yeah, especially having just read his revelation to become third ideal, because I read Dawn Shard, finished it today in the car on the way home. And so it's kind of fun. It'd be fun to then see his next step. And I think he's due for a fourth ideal important moment, right? Every other ideal has been after the battle is over. We need the Lopen is in the middle of a fight and he goes, I will accept that there are those I cannot save. And the Stormfather's like, finally, I've been waiting for you to say that for days, and give it to him.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see.
Yeah, I didn't have a whole lot to say about this chapter, but I think, again, like, Lopen just sort of is like there for me. He's not, I don't have a ton of like feelings about Lopen. Some people are like really into him. Some people really can't stand him. He's just sort of like there for me. So I think like I was reading it and I was like, okay, like kind of just moving along. So I didn't pick up on the whole Navani thing. Also, are they in Shadesmar?
So it was very confusing even to me as I read it.
Because at the beginning of at the beginning of this portion, he says the tower was strange on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
What other side other than?
They're in, they are in Shadesmar to start off with. I can't remember if they make it out, like if they leave by the end or not. Yeah, I don't think they do. I think they finish this whole section in Yeah, they're in Shadesmar the whole time. Particularly at the end, Lopin points to the sun by the very end.
Right. I know that's what, but there is no sun in Shadesmar, so that's why.
Oh, it's the light. It's that like the light thing that the shadows go towards.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because that's
like in Yasna's chapter title thing, the like black with the little white sun.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I mean, that it does give us we saw Navani shrugging at the news. Have you ever seen her shrug before? Have you ever seen her eat chowta before? That kind of thing. Let's see. Yeah, and then just acknowledging like, hey, they might have a plan. We don't want to mess the plan up, and we just got to keep moving forward.
Yep.
Cool.
Okay, then we get to, this is a big one. Then we get to the Kaladin Ishar scene. Yeah. And this one, I was like, okay, it's a very entertaining scene, but I was like, there is so much happening here that I either am missing or don't understand, or it's loaded. It's a very loaded scene, so.
It's a lot. It is the kind of scene that is just heavy with foreshadowing and dramatic irony, and you can tell we don't have enough to have the dramatic irony yet. It's like pieces.
So let me ask you this question before we get started. Yeah. Okay. At the end of Rhythm of War, Ishar is crazy, right? We see him. He's absolutely insane. He thinks that he's a god. He tries to steal the Stormfather from Dalinar, all that stuff. Then Navani swears, right? She becomes the bondsmith. Boom. He's lucid for a few seconds. He tells Dalinar, come find me in Shinovar. Okay. And now this is the next time we're seeing him. Is he back to crazy Ishar, or is he now somewhat lucid? Because I could not tell.
It was a great question. It felt to me like at least a little bit of healing has happened. That there was something that woke him up to go, wait, I'm not Tezim. Like, I don't need to be that person. I don't need to pretend to be that person. I can be Ishar again. What that means, who knows? But that to me is what was supposed to be indicated by this scene, that he is slightly better than he was before, kind of like Nail got slightly better when Lift swore her ideal. And I mean, it wasn't just Navani either. You have Navani, you have Kaladin, you have Venli, you have Relaine. Like a lot of people swore ideals right around the time when that fight was happening. So it does seem to have helped him enough that now he's at a different level of what's going on. I want to talk about with Ishar, there's a really strong argument that he should have the title or has the title Bearer of Agonies rather than Taln. He is the one who has borne the other, or 9, not the other, because he didn't take Taln's, but he claims to be bearing the madness for the other heralds, and that Taln he doesn't have his protection. That then begs the question: is this the man with 9 shadows that will be Odium's champion? Right? Because even all the way back in maybe Oathbringer, way of somewhere in that ballpark, when Oathbringer, I guess, and Words of Radiance, but you start to see the vision of the man with 9 shadows. Are the 9 shadows the 9 agonies that he's bearing for people, his own madness as well as Yezrian's and everybody else's?
I think that makes a lot more sense than it being Adolin, which is because that's that's when the people who say that it's Adolin, a lot of times they bring up that vision of he says that I am Adolin born under the sign of the 9.
The sign of the 9, yeah.
So, okay, but it makes a lot more sense than it would be. But then again, like, just from a narrative point of view, would that mean that Kaladin fails? And is that is that a satisfying arc for Kaladin? Is what's getting in my way of that. Like, I really like that idea. But if Ishar is the champion, then it means that, like, what does that mean for Kaladin? I think is the only thing that's kind of blocking me from that.
No, it's totally fair. I think I've shared I've definitely have shared on here before. My ideal fun theory would be Ishar as Odium's champion, believing that he's Honor's champion, right? Like, he is there believing he's doing the right thing, but just deluded, just his madness is unable to bear with reality. But I had not ever really taken that next step that you've pointed out, which is, oh yeah, that means Kaladin did not succeed in his arc to save Ishar. But I don't, choice is a thing. So it's possible that he saves the other heralds but can't save Ishar because of Ishar's choices. And John S., you point out with Yezrian gone, would he still have 9 shadows? Yeah, it's a bit of a problem. And you could argue that he still has the madness that he bore and he can't get rid of it, perhaps.
Or maybe he takes on Talon's madness and then we get like lucid Talon.
That does feel like a bit of we use it every week, but a bit of a Chekhov's shadow. Chekhov's bearer of agony.
We've had many Chekhovs in these.
That there comes a moment where Talon needs to be lucid and now he's able to be lucid for a little bit.
Yeah. I definitely think we're going to see a big Talon scene in this book somewhere.
He's a big man, so any scene with Talon is a big Talon scene.
Very true.
Well, even the interlude that Sanderson read at Fan X, I think we said, references Talon and Ash and where they are. So that implies to me that they're going to come back into the story. And I think Renarin's vision has them in Shinovar. So, yeah. Let's see. This was a great conversation. Somebody I was talking with on Alex on the Silverlight Guide to the Cosmere, we were talking through do we think that we take what Ishar says and we flip it? So it's partially true, but it's not all completely lies, but maybe everything should be taken as half truths. I don't know, because if he's insane, right, we don't want to take everything he says at complete face value.
Yeah, this is why I was confused, because halfway through, Kaladin says, we all need help sometimes. Do you sometimes feel overwhelmed? You can't trust your thoughts? And then he says, Dalinar sent you. I see now. He wants to confuse me, convince me that I'm not a god. But that's why I was confused as to how lucid is he? Because, so
I
don't
think
know. I don't. This is what I was saying. I don't really know what happened in this chapter, other than we get reintroduced to Ishar. He's nuts, and Kaladin's this is going to be harder than I thought. Is basically.
Yeah, it feels like he no longer has this false persona, but he calls himself Ishar who has ascended, right? Doesn't he say?
Yeah, he says, in that moment Tezim died, but I need that name no longer. I can be Ishar who ascended to the position of the Almighty.
Yeah. So it seems like he's trying to do what Dalinar is doing, right? He's trying to become Honor's new vessel in his own way. And maybe even believes that he has at some level, which would be a little scary because that would imply maybe a bond with an unmade, perhaps, if he believes that he's bonded Honor. Not a good thing.
Yeah, no, not a good thing.
Yeah, I do really feel so. I love, to me, this is the awkward Kaladin therapizing that the librarian scene was going for, where he tries to do a thing and it just is it just stumbles across of how do I get you to sit back on the couch and do talk therapy with you while we're doing this?
Yeah, it was pretty funny where Kaladin's just way out of his depth, and he's well, how does that make you feel? And Ishar's I am a god, Kaladin's I don't know what to do, this is not working.
What does that mean?
What does that mean? And he's we can talk about that, but not right now, because it's just, the whole thing is just so it is, if it wasn't so dire, it would be funny. Because it's just so bizarre. That's the thing. It's this chapter, I think part of the reason why it was so confusing is because we have two characters who are having two conversations at the same time. And Kaladin's I don't really know what's happening, but I know I have to do this thing. And he's honor bound, so he's going to do it until it doesn't work. And Ishar is operating on a whole different level. And he's kind of just talking over Kaladin, which is just pretty funny.
Oh yeah, they are very much talking past each other.
Yeah.
How do you feel about the fact that Ishar just doesn't even consider Kaladin to have been a piece on the board up to this point?
Yeah, that makes total sense, because he's the kind of, I think, from what we've seen of him so far, this is a man who thinks that he's a god. So he's, the fact that he sees anybody on the board, the fact that I think the only reason he sees Dalinar is important is because Dalinar has something that he wants or needs. So yeah, I think he just sees Kaladin as insignificant. which is funny.
But not Zeth. Zeth is the truthless. That. So here's my pitch, and I'm going to come back to Stormfaker. This is my last Hail Mary on Stormfaker from the prologue, being Ishar. Okay, is we're going to get a flashback with Zeth, where Ishar is pretending to be someone that is going to convince Zeth to do something, and that's going to be the hint that Ishar was really pretending to be the Stormfather, working with Gavilar. So that's my last Hail Mary as a potential Stormfaker is Ishar possibility. But it certainly seems like he was manipulating Zeth in some way back before he became a truthless.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about the Stormfather, Stormfaker theory, but
Sure.
I would say that, yeah, that whole thing was very strange for me also, where he says the truthless has returned at last. He's the way that he's speaking about Zeth is very unsettling. Where is Zeth, by the way, in this whole scene?
I think he's like back by the fire and or asleep. Like they think they're just because Kaladin walked a little bit away to play on his flute, I guess. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, this whole thing was very unsettling. We've talked about how, like, Zeth in general, the way that he speaks about his mission is a little unsettling. So, yeah. And then, so I don't know, anything else you have to say on the Zeth thing?
I continue to be intrigued to see what happens with Zeth's pilgrimage, because I don't think he's going to satisfy his High Spren. I think he's going to end up making a decision that his High Spren doesn't agree with, and then figuring out what happens from there will be fascinating, because we've not seen a High Spren leave their partner yet, but there's lots of implications that they do. So
yeah, maybe he can get a new High Spren. Okay, so then we have this scene, which I actually laughed a little bit when I read this the first time, where it says, the light faded and Ishar was gone, storms, and Syl says, great, that went well. And I first read it as like a little bit sarcastic of like, well, that went well, but then I realized afterwards that Kaladin's like, well, what are you talking about? It made no sense, which I thought was just really funny. Because Syl's like, oh yeah, like, you know, we did the thing, we talked to the guy.
Yep.
And she's like, and he didn't vaporize us, like,
he didn't
success.
Vaporize us or anything.
Yay.
Yeah, it is really good to Syl's just that reminder of like, hey, let's have some positive thoughts.
Little victories.
Yep.
Also, like, I think we've been talking about a lot since we've been doing these videos of like, what exactly is Kaladin's story going to be? And I think here we kind of get confirmation that it's not going to be him sitting with Ishar day and day. It's going to be more him working with Zeth to do whatever they're going to do. So I'm interested to see like where that goes, but I think this is pretty much confirmation of this is what Kaladin's going to be doing this book. It's going to involve some action. It's going to involve him doing stuff with Zeth rather than like him sitting, you know, with Ishar lying next to him on a couch saying, oh, how does that make you feel? But we'll see. Maybe we'll get some of that too.
Yep. Oh man, such a way to end day 2. You know, I mean, day 1 ending, you're like, oh yeah, cool. Like I could read some more. Day 2 ends, and I'm like, all right, let's go. Let's get the book.
Yep. Here's the thing, because now we're done. Like, I mean, tomorrow I think we have some of the interludes left, and that's about it.
2 interludes tomorrow.
I'll tell you. Here's the thing that concerns me the most. I have no idea who Odium's champion is going to be, and I don't like any of the options. I don't know.
Like El or Vyre? El or Moash?
Well, I mean, those are okay. Here's my thing. It has to be, I feel like, somebody who would have some dramatic weight to, meaning this is the you know, crescendo, right? This is the climax of the Stormlight Archive. And so it's going to be Dalinar against somebody. And there has to be emotional weight behind the fight. So, yes, I could see with Moash a little bit. With El, I don't see it because we haven't had him at all. Like, he just was introduced at the end of, you know, at the end of the last book, and he hasn't been around in day 1 or day 2. I think he'll be important, but do we think that he's going to be the like? Isn't that going to come across a little bit as just like villain of the week vibes?
Yeah. It just depends on what we get from him going forward. He would like kind of like you're saying, if he's a POV in day 3, then we have a chance. If he's not, it does seem a lot less likely, but we still have 8 days left. 8 days. I mean, 9 days really, or 7 days of setup, and then the 8th day of, the fight. But it's like noon on the 8th day. So you even get half of day 10 or 8th day from now. It's noon of the 10th day. No, it's not. It's not a lot.
I know. And so, yeah, so I'm just sort of, I still don't know what to make of that. And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I'm sure it'll be something. But I know Brandon, his writing, he doesn't really do things like villain of the week. Yeah. And he usually his big endings, there's some big cathartic, emotional reason. Like, I just can't see him doing like, we need a big fight scene at the end, so big fight scene. I just don't see him doing that. So it's going to be somebody that's going to be some sort of emotional payoff. I just don't know what, and I'm scared to know the answer at this point.
Agreed. Very much agreed. Yeah. I do in that that TikTok that I did about like sentences that would make you throw wind and truth across the room. One of the other ones I saw that just it was hysterical was this was it. The next step, the most important step Dalinar would ever take, to the top of Urithiru for the final contest. The fate of Roshar will be decided. The end of Book 5. The Stormlight Archive.
Yeah. I don't think that's going to happen.
No, that would cause a riot at Dragonsteel Nexus. There are not many spoilers that I think would actually get people talking openly. That would probably get people talking openly.
Yeah, I mean, it just also doesn't make sense. Like, from a narrative, it doesn't make sense from a narrative standpoint. I don't see Brent doing that, but it would make people mad. Mm-hmm. Definitely would make people mad.
All right, what's your final predictions? I know we just talked about how we can't predict anything.
Final predictions. I am really bad at predictions. Well, we still need to. We need to find out. I actually predict. This is a small thing. I predict we're going to get a scene where we have Kaladin and Seth go back to the farmhouse. And that'll be great. I think that we'll get a scene like that. I'm going to do very small predictions because I don't know. Like I said, I just
sure.
I don't know who the author of Wind and Truth is. I don't know who Odium's champion is going to be. I don't know any of that stuff. But I do think that we're going to get a scene where they go back to the farmhouse, and I think we'll probably get some like wit lift shenanigans of them pretending to be Dalinar and Navani. Now that you pointed out that that's almost certainly going to happen. My biggest concern is, what's going to happen with Gavinor? Because I think that that's actually going to become a huge thing. So that we'll see early on whether or not that's going to be really important. I mean, I can't imagine how it's not going to be important. Just the question is like, which way?
Oh yeah.
So, and then really we haven't, I would like to go back to Adolin for a little bit. Like I miss him, like let's get some Adolin, I want to get some like battle scenes with him fighting so.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
Adolin and Sigil are going to have really fun POVs because they're going to the front lines. And I have to imagine there'll be a good chunk of day 3 and day 4 is resolving what's going on the Shattered Plains and with Azamir. Other predictions. Yeah, I still really like the idea that the shadow that they were going to go investigate will be gone in the morning. like it'll be moving around Shinovar, and so they'll wake up and they'll be like, "Oh, let's go." No, we did the responsible thing and we rested before we went in, and now it's gone. That would be really funny. My tinfoil hat predictions are Gavinor ends up with Mraize, and probably Navani and Dalinar go on a different journey than Shallan and Renarin. I think that's probably the most logical, like, separate them out and have them do different things in the spiritual realm. They will find Bottle Mishram and they will talk with her, and I'm expecting her to get released, for better or for worse.
Do you think
super tinfoil hat theory is she bonds Gavinor. That's like the uber tinfoil hat theory. But it's a good thing. Like it's a positive thing, not a bad thing.
I just don't want to see it. I don't want to see any like bad things happen to this kid. I just don't know if I can handle it. Like even just to see him like crying alone somewhere in the spiritual, I don't want to see any of this. Like I just can't handle it. So I hope that it's like, I hope that we open up Wind and Truth and it's like the chat and Navani's like, come here, you're gonna stay with me and Grandpa and everything's gonna be okay. And that's what I want to see.
It just it's you can't have that in fiction though, right? The kids can't be with the adults, otherwise the kids don't get. That's why like Renarin has to be somewhere different than Dalinar, because if they're together, Renarin is going to subsume to Dalinar, and it just
can't. But Dalinar is 5. Like he doesn't need to be by himself. You know?
Agreed. Jason, you asked when will the next live be? Shanda, what do you think about Monday after Dragonsteel? Does Monday night similar time work?
Probably. I don't see why not. We'll have to see how tired I am.
Yeah.
But from traveling, I mean, there's a possibility that we may be able to go live while we're at Dragonsteel, but likely not. But we'll see.
Yeah. Okay. And then you also, Jason, you said you are going to you got lucky enough to get a traditional signing at Nexus. Wonderful. What is the best question to ask Brandon Sanderson? What would I've wanted to know for a little bit, it's hard because so many of them touch on things that I think are Wind and Truth spoilers, and so I don't know that he'll answer any of those things. What would he answer? That's the hard thing now, is like finding a thing he'll actually answer about.
I think like best to ask him something, like if you want to get an answer and not just a raffo, like best to ask him something like a little bit sillier, like, what, Starbucks drinks would they order or something. Like that's what I would do, just because it's like more fun. But if you really, because I just honestly, like, I don't know if he's going to answer any lore questions, and you only get one question. So it's like the likelihood of him answering something. But that's what I would do. But
you can ask him if the gods riding around in earrings thing is a reference to the Inkspren, or whether it's a reference to Ruin, or whether it's both. You could ask him whether the Fused really did bathe in the blood of radiance, and whether it actually helped them maintain their sanity. These are all things. These are just my little things, right? That's probably what those are the things that press on my mind because of these conversations. Oh man.
Yeah. Go with like more silly or more like questions that are likely to get answered. I think if you start asking like really lore or mechanic based questions, he'll probably just raffle them.
Yeah, it depends on where you want to go with it. Another one might be like I've wondered before whether the Radiants ever speak subconsciously to the rhythms when they speak their ideals. I think that would be really cool. What other ones have I tried to do? What would you ask Shandel if you had a moment to ask Brandon a question?
I don't know. I'm not really good at this kind of stuff, to be honest. I don't know. I'd have to think about it. I don't know if I would have I would probably just ask him can you look at my artwork and do you like it? It wouldn't be I don't know if I'd have any big questions. It's just I'm not very theory minded. So I'm not sometimes when you watch these the Q&As and people come up and they're asking about the mechanics and the gravity and the physics on Roshar and Scadro, and I'm I don't know any of this stuff. This is so way out of my comfort zone.
Speaking of which, are you gonna go? Oh, sorry, you were finished. I'm so sorry.
Go ahead.
I'm so sorry. Well, I was gonna say, are you gonna go to the spoiler Q&A session that he's gonna do at Dragonsteel?
When is it?
It's Thursday, 2 o'clock, maybe.
Okay, so I think I saw it, and I think it said that it was like full, but that I was like, I don't know if that's the kind of thing where like I'll
Oh,
just be
that
able to get in anyway.
yeah, you should be able to. That should be the huge auditorium that is
Oh
like
no, you're right. Maybe that was the one that has like it's like 5,000 tickets, so there's like it's like enough for
yeah.
everybody to go or something. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I'll go. Yeah, for sure. I
Oh,
mean, again,
Jason
like
says
I
Thursday at 3.
Thursday at
Thanks,
3.
Jason.
I have to see. I can't remember what things I signed up for, but I honestly like I was so overwhelmed by the signing up for things that I was kind of
Yep.
like I want to just go and just walk around and just. I think especially Thursday is just going to be very overwhelming and just kind of like let myself just be there and not worry too much because and then if I can go to the panels that I want, great, and if I can't, then it'll be okay. Like I'm just not kind of I don't want to like psych myself or hype myself into what it's supposed to be and that it's not. So basically what I'm saying is we're trying to be as calm as possible.
Yeah.
But yeah. But yeah, I would like to go. I think the thing that I'm sad about missing is the I would have loved to watch Brandon and Dan Wells taping the Intentionally Blank. But I'm pretty sure that's going to be on Saturday, so that's not going to happen. But yeah.
Yeah, I always go back and forth on that because part of my brain is like, I can watch that on YouTube. Like I have the, I will get 90 to 70% of that experience later. But it is fun to be in the room where it happens, as it were.
Room where it happens. Do you have any panels that like that you're really looking forward to, or that you suggest that I try to get to?
Ooh, interesting question. This was not when. Well, let me see. Let's see. What do I have?
Oh, I'll tell you. I have it pulled up. The ones that I like officially have set in a schedule is the cover art in fantasy, which is on Thursday, and then the traditional publishing panel, which is on Friday morning. Okay. Those are the only two that I like saw, and I was like, okay, let me just put these down. And then I also purchased one of the craft kits. I purchased the Soulcaster craft kit. So, yeah, so that should be fun too.
That's awesome. I mean, the dueling that's going to be happening in the vendor hall area. Have you ever seen the foam shard blades and shard spears and things that they've crafted? Oh, they're so cool. Those are always fun. There's, let's see. Which one? I mean, I have the Cosmere trivia, but I don't think that will be something that you would. It's a room full of people answering those like. What's the quizzes that teachers use?
Kahoot.
Kahoot, yes. That's how they did it last year. And they were. It's fun because you're like, oh my gosh, I don't know half of these things, and that was cool.
There was a lot of like pictures with Mistborn Santa. That I was just seeing, but that's like a lot. Yeah. I mean, also just like I'm gonna want to walk around and meet everybody, like because a lot of the vendors that are going to be there are people that I've known, like Katie and Marie, and all these people. So that'll be really exciting for me as well. And so I think I'm just kind of gonna take it a little easy. But yeah, it's really cool.
Any last thoughts?
That's all I got. That's all I got. I mean, yeah, like we're here. We're at the end. It's here. So
your game plan is to try to read it most of it Friday night into Saturday night.
Yep. Okay. I've got 25 hours where I have no phone and like nothing else to do. I mean, we've said like we were joking about this and said we're bringing games and we're we're all gonna just be reading straight. Like that's just basically what we're all gonna be doing. So I don't know if I will finish it, but we'll see. Probably by Saturday night when I'll probably jump back over to the con Saturday night afterwards to like say goodbye to everybody. But I'll probably have gotten through a good chunk of it. So stay away from me if you don't want spoilers.
Yeah, if you see Shandel, just say the day number you're at, and that way she'll know.
We're only up to day 4.
Jason, I will not be in the low number line. I've got my kids with me, and so I have to prioritize the things that I go off and do separate, and that's not going to be high enough on my list. I'm happy with any I don't remember if I even got officially a numbered copy or not. I don't know, but it is not high enough on my list to make the cut. So that's where
I
I'm
did
at.
not buy a book because I refuse to pay $80. I've said this so many times. I refuse to pay $80 for a book that I can buy for $30. So not happening.
Yeah.
If I must,
Well,
I will go to Barnes and Noble's Friday
you get
and
a
get
plush too. It's not just the book, but yeah.
it. Listen,
I forgot about the plush. I'm excited now. I'd completely forgotten. I will end up paying more than $85 because I have pre-ordered it on Audible. I'll have the physical book that we get at the convention, and then while at the convention, I will 100% be purchasing the New Zealand Amazon Kindle edition because one, I get the European cover, and two, I can get it at like 12 to 1 Mountain Time. So
it's a Kindle version.
yes.
So you won't have it like on your shelf or anything. It's just because.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So yeah, I'm gonna see hopefully they will have it. Hopefully I'll be able to get it at the convention so I don't have to like run out to Barnes and Nobles or something like that. But if not, I will, do what we have to do. But yeah, I'm really excited.
All right. And we'll plan on not tomorrow, but next Monday after Dragonsteel will be the next live.
Yeah. I don't know what we're going to be talking about. Maybe just like overall, maybe we'll do just like a general overall. People can just, vent. Well, I guess it depends on if both of us have finished the book. We'll have to discuss before.
We'll have a clear spoiler policy. I think at minimum, we would say day 3 and or day 4 would be up for discussion. I can't imagine a world where we don't both at least read through day 4.
I would. Here's the thing. I'm not very good at that. So again,
That's true.
That's
true.
I would say, at your own peril, join us at your own peril, because I don't know what's going to come out of my mouth. Like I'm going to try really hard to not, but yeah. I don't know. Like it could. Like I'm not always good at remembering what happens when. So
yeah,
basically.
That's fair. We'll plan a vibes and spoiler free section and a Dragonsteel recap, and then if we've both read everything, we can then have a discussion about the whole book for anybody else who has read the whole book by that point.
Sounds like a plan.
Awesome. All right. Have a good week, and I'll see you on Wednesday.
Yeah, I'll see you Wednesday.
Bye.
Bye.